We have made it to the beginning of October. We are here for another fabulous episode of Adventures in Business. Mandy, how are we doing today?
I am doing awesome. I think we should call this Rocktober. This is
Oh,
our guest today is going to kick off 5 amazing October guests. So I'm officially calling it Rocktober for our guests this month.
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Rocktober. We can ride with that.
we can write.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question for you though, honey.
Let's go.
Twitch TV Awards. Those are
hmm
tonight. Can you
Yes.
tell
Yes.
everybody what those are and what your involvement is? Because you are crazy. I know you did this last year. You're doing it again this year. You
Yes.
look really calm right now, about to produce a huge award show. Can you talk about it, educate us on what it is and what your involvement is?
Absolutely. So this is a award show that we created 3 years ago, middle of pandemic, to celebrate just all the work that DJs and then moderators who moderate DJ channels doing on Twitch, which is a live streaming platform. And so this is like a celebration, and we have like awards like best R&B singer, best moderator who handles security, most creative streamer. And the reason we did is like a lot of times with these bigger platforms like Twitch, they don't really give attention to like some of the smaller communities, and the DJ community on Twitch is 2 or 3% compared to the other 90% of gamers. So we decided to do this award show. This is the third year we're doing it. I'm excited. It's a lot of work, a lot of editing, but it's a great product and it looks great. And it's like it's an official award show. Many people tune in from all over the world. So we are about what time? We're about 4 hours out from it.
You are so calm, 4 hours out for producing a huge show. How many people will tune in? Because I last year I went on, I'd never been on Twitch before. I just went on to support you. And I remember seeing so many it went so fast. I was like, "Wow, how many
Yeah.
people come on to this?" And for people that don't know what Twitch is, can you educate
Yeah.
everybody on what Twitch is too?
So I think we'll probably have, hopefully last year we had 1,127 people at one time, which is a lot of people on one channel watching and commenting. So that's a lot. The first year, I
Mhm.
think we had 850 or something. So hopefully
Awesome.
somewhere in between that, maybe more, because you grow every year. And basically Twitch is like a live streaming platform where like today we're having this interview in this show and we're live streaming it. So we can do the same thing like here on Twitch, like your own TV channel. We can broadcast yourself DJing, talk shows, playing games. Twitch is primarily gamers and that kind of content. And that's what it is. And so that has taught me how to do what we do here with our live stream show, OBS, ping, all of the above. So that's what we have, and that's what's going on for me in about 4 hours. And I'm
Well,
calm
best
because, yes, go ahead.
I was gonna say best wishes. Good luck. May
Thank
the
you.
force be
Thank you.
with you. You're gonna rock.
All
You're gonna be
right.
awesome.
I appreciate it. Um, I think, well, so we have our guest today. I'm gonna let you introduce her because I got questions. I made my list. We got some relationship things to discuss. I need some answers. So I'm gonna let you introduce Keandra to us, and then we'll have our chat.
I am so excited. The first time I met this person, she was a keynote speaker at our MPI Southern California event a couple years ago. And it was the first live event we had done since the pandemic. She opened up the show, she got on stage, she had so much energy, and her message was all about moving forward. And she was super inspirational. I had to know her more. So, of course, I followed her, and I'm glad we have her here. But this person, she's been recognized by Inc. magazine, Forbes. She's been recognized as a high performing CEO. She's been featured in Women's Health magazine. She's a regular on the doctor's show. She's been on CBS and Essence, and she's a marriage and family therapist, a keynote speaker, and a TV personality. And I feel like she's going to
Mhm.
solve all your problems today,
Yes.
Amani. Keandra
Yes.
Jackson, come to the
Welcome.
stage.
Yes. So round of applause there. You see the applause there? Amazing. And just to reiterate what Mandy said, like, thank you for being the keynote speaker for one of our first events back in person during my presidency of MPI Southern California. So thank you again. It was amazing. Really appreciative. I say you heard kind of some of the introduction. I told you I had questions. My first question, really, and we get right down to business here because I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but it'll kind of set the table. And I'm sure your answer will be interesting. But as a therapist, Within the Black and brown communities, there's a certain stigmatism to therapy.
Mm.
Why is that the case? And what have you seen in terms of over the last years as mental health has been such a focus nationally?
Oh, these is good. These are great questions. First of all, thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I love being a keynote at WeCon. It was amazing. I think that was my first in-person event after the pandemic anyway. So it was
Yeah.
very refreshing for both of us. And so, Imani, that was a great question. I feel like in the Black and brown community, we know mental health has been stigmatized. I mean, statistically, we know our white counterparts go to therapy way more than people of color in general. And I think that is because historically, we just haven't trusted the medical system. We hadn't trusted professionals, whether that was doctors or licensed therapists or anybody in the field because of how we've been treated, for decades, even if we trace it all the way back to slavery days. And so I think there's just this underlying fear, underlying uncertainty. And also, too, there are certain, how can I say this? There's certain stigmas that we even learn within our family. Like, you don't talk to strangers about your business. What happens, here stays here. Even if you're a person of faith, you just go to God and talk, about your problems. And so I think all of those underlying messages that get reinforced to us as a child, they kind of stick with us. So when we get older and we go through things as we do because we're human, we don't seek therapy and mental health out as the first resource. We kind of seek that out never, or
Mhm.
as a very desperate means as the last resource. And so I'm just excited that so many more people are talking about mental health therapy. I mean, on social media, there's so many therapists showing up, giving resources and tips. And I think it's just a wider space for us to get the message out that mental health is important and it can't be ignored.
Yes, yes, agreed, most definitely. The follow-up question to that would be, what is a way where you have convinced people who might have been against therapy, like anti, how have you been able to convince them to maybe look into a little more and actually attend a session or two or three?
Ooh, I don't know if I would use the word convince. So I don't necessarily am in the field I don't have the desire to convince anyone. I think life kicks people in the butt enough,
Mm.
meaning life throws curveballs, unexpected deaths and loss and sickness and all different relationship issues kind of just drives us to a very, very low point. And we look around and our family can't help us, our friends can't help us, and we're thinking, okay, what is the next step here? And so sometimes people hear the recommendation of, just go seek professional help, whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist, whoever. Like, you need someone who can objectively speak to your situation and not be biased and not, be subjective with their perceptions. And so by the time people get to me, they've already kind of done a little bit of breaking the barriers about mental health. And I think it really helps that I am a millennial. I'm not going to say I'm young because, the Gen Zs,
You're very young. You're young. You can say that. We'll let
Young,
you.
you're
You're young.
they
young.
don't think I'm little. They don't think I'm young, right? I have Gen Zs calling me auntie now. And I'm like, oh no,
Oh
have I
boy.
moved to auntie status? What's going on?
Aw, at least they're not calling you ma'am. I had
Yes.
that happen. Stay in the auntie status. It's a good
Yeah, and I
place.
think it helps that, I am millennial. I'm a little bit younger than most therapists that we typically see, like on television and in movies. We typically see, older people and male oftentimes. And so
Mm.
being young, being millennial, being, having natural hair, all of these things kind of attracts people to me, especially because I do a lot of work in the media and speaking. And so people get drawn to me. And so they look me up and they figure it out like, oh, I think I should go see this girl. And when they do, they are in for a rude awakening, whether that's a
Yes.
good thing or a bad.
We like it. We like it. Shout out to Dr. Will Moreland on Facebook tuning in. So good to see you, sir. Boom. Mandy, I'll
Boom. He's from Compton as well. That is one of
so you
my
know Dr. Will.
someone that I look
Okay.
up to. So thank you, Dr. Will,
Nice.
for tuning in.
Yes, Dr. Will and
Aw.
I are in the same mastermind together. So why aren't you there with us? We'll talk about that. Before I ask my next
Because I
question, I'm
didn't get
gonna
invited. Okay, is this my
hey,
formal invite?
okay, okay, we're gonna
I
get you
think it's a
invited. We're gonna
formal
get you invited real
invite.
quick. Uh-oh, hold on, hold on. Uh Mandy, I'm gonna defer to you for the next question. Then I have more, so keep going.
Yeah, I want to take a quick left turn for a second and talk about the business of therapy, because I think you do such an awesome job at not only being a recognized therapist, but you do a great job at helping other people with other things, whether that is getting more media, whether that is how to speak on the internet using Instagram. And I think you just made your business so robust. So I have a couple questions surrounding that. And the first one is, when did you make the turn from going from being a therapist to adding these other pieces of your business? When did you make the turn and what made you make that turn?
That's a great question. I think the turn wasn't intentional at all. I never sat down and was like, you know what? I should be on TV. I should write articles. I should speak. I never really thought about it from that aspect. I genuinely just love talking about healthy relationships and mental health. And so I just decided to get on social media. Back then, Facebook was huge, right? Like that was
Mhm.
the platform.
Yeah.
So I got on Instagram and Facebook and just started talking about relationship, doing live Q&As and just really engaging with my audience. And people loved it. They just wanted more. They saw my personality. They really didn't understand how I could be a therapist and, just
Mhm.
understanding it from a different lens. And so I just started doing that consistently. And then people started reaching out to me and wanted me to be on their podcast. And I said
Mhm.
yes. So I
Mhm.
started doing a whole bunch of podcasts. And then that turned into live in-person speaking engagements. And that is kind of what catapulted my career from just being a therapist, seeing clients one-on-one in my private practice, to getting on larger platforms, speaking at WeCon, and when there's,
Mhm.
hundreds and even thousands of people in attendance. And then from there is where my media career developed, because people saw me speaking and they're like, okay, this girl, she has the personality, she has the charisma, she has the shine, she would
Yeah.
be great for TV. And so that was what transitioned me to doing that. And that's where I found my love. I love speaking. I love seeing clients as well. Don't get me wrong. But speaking and media, it brings me the most joy right now. And so
Mm.
I'm putting a lot of energy into allowing my message to reach a larger audience instead of just working with the people one on one behind closed doors.
I love that. And I'm curious about the scaling of it, right? Because human capital, like there's only so many hours in a week. There's only so many hours you can see patients. There's only so many hours you can have a speaking engagement. So how are you scaling these different revenue streams of your business? Or is that something that you're thinking about or working on?
Yeah, again, that wasn't necessarily intentional for me. I just was doing
Mhm.
this because I love to do it. I wasn't really doing it for the money. And I still really don't do a lot of things for money, even though that
Mhm.
is important to me.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have to get paid for my time and energy now, but my heart is to really help people and give back to the people. And I think that's why I'm so blessed, because the resources, the financial resources, come along after you prioritize things in the proper order. And
Mhm.
so I think for me, it's just about help having authentic relationships with people. So even
Yeah.
just me connecting and meeting you guys,
Mhm.
earlier this year led me to being on this. And who knows where we can go after. He's talking about a mastermind after this. So
Yeah.
you
Endless,
need
endless.
to expand. It's
Yeah.
endless. And so there's people who I connected with, whether it was online, in person. I've, connected with them for articles or media opportunities, and they just remember me because
Yeah.
I was easy to work with, because I was a joy. They always come back and say, hey, we have another opportunity. Can you be a part of this? Can we make it work? And so that's kind of where the scaling goes, just staying in the forefront, staying in front of people's eyes. I do a lot of video content. And I think that kind of gives me a wider range than probably the average therapist.
That's great.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
interesting. And if you're not following Keandra, follow her on YouTube,
There it is.
follow her on Instagram, if for nothing else, to get a quick hit of advice, because it's endless. It's endless. I mean, you are super entertaining, but the advice is so real and rooted in what's actually happening in people's lives. There's no BS about it. And I really appreciate that about you.
Her
Thank
YouTube's on the ticker below. Since many mention advice, first shout out to Lori Pace. She agrees with the mastermind. She was in the mastermind last term. So there you go, another person there. Since many mention advice, I'm curious about, and I'm speaking from personal experience in terms of like experience with narcissism within relationships. And so
Mm.
that's kind of something that I had to deal with previously. And I'm curious, what's been your experience and what advice do you have for people? Because more than likely you have no clue that the person you're in a relationship with is a narcissist until hopefully you've left and you've been able to come out of the narcissistic fog. What's your advice and what's your experience with that?
Yeah, so I have to first state this. I firmly believe that narcissism is a completely overused term
Mhm.
these days and often misused, because there's a
Mm.
lot of people who think someone is a narcissist and they're really not, or they don't necessarily meet the quote unquote criteria, because there is a literal criteria in order to be diagnosed, because it is a personality disorder, right?
Mhm.
Which oftentimes it is rooted in our childhood, our upbringing. You didn't get something that you were supposed to receive from your caregivers. And also, it can be genetics as well. So, I think sometimes, especially in our culture today, we hear this term and we run
Right.
with it. We use that for everything. It's just like, well, technically, this person may have been manipulative or
Mhm.
disrespectful or rude or couldn't take responsibility, but that doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist. So, I would encourage us to make sure that we're using things appropriately and correctly, not that you misused that at
Right. No,
all.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think we just have to have really concrete conversations around, especially mental health terms that can be damaging, because some people, you wouldn't want the label of being a narcissist when you're
Mhm.
really not, like that's
Right.
just
No.
really fair. So I think being with someone who truly is a narcissist is probably one of the hardest things that you will
Mhm.
ever experience in the relationship, but also breaking free and getting away, quote unquote, from that person. I mean, this is someone who is very typically grandiose. They don't take responsibility for their actions. They can be very manipulative. They're never wrong, just all of those
Mhm.
things. And it kind of makes you feel like you're the crazy one, right? It
Yes, yes,
feels
it's called gaslighting. Gaslighting, been there. Yes, it's like, am I crazy here? Because I know this doesn't add up. But
Oh,
continue.
poor mommy. Poor mommy.
makes you feel like something you've done is wrong. You're the crazy one.
Right.
You're missing something. And it makes you question your sanity. And so I think it takes a very intuitive person, a very self aware person to say, okay, something's not right here. This isn't a one off situation. This isn't something that happened maybe once or twice. This is a pattern of behavior that is consistently present here. And I think the hardest thing is that most people who are truly narcissistic, they're very likable. They're very loved by people. They present well. You will probably never know that they're a real narcissist until you dig deep and kind of get behind closed doors. And so breaking free and eliminating that relationship or ending the relationship can be very hard. I know a lot of people who stay because they have been, gaslit so much to the point that they start to
Mm.
believe the things that the person said, and they now feel like they are the ones that were wrong. And it's like you have to go through this recovery stage after the relationship to kind of like detox from everything, all of the advice, the words, the negativity that the person has given you. And you have to kind of like flesh that out of your life. So that would probably be the quickest advice that I can give, or perspective I can give about narcissism, is that it's a doozy, and you also need to
Yes.
take time to heal before moving into another relationship.
Agreed. What are some of your best tips or advice for people in the recovery stage? What are some things they can do to kind of continue to improve and just rebuild themselves?
Yeah, one is don't jump into another relationship immediately. Sometimes we get lonely, or society says we're supposed to, be married or have kids or do X, Y, and Z, and we have that outside pressure of just wanting to be with someone. Take the time that you need, whether it can be months, it can be years, whatever space you need. Take the time to truly heal, because if not, you're going to literally drag all of the baggage that you have to the next relationship, and then that one's going to end horribly, and then it's going to be a repeat of patterns, and you
Mm.
don't want that to happen. So take the time to heal would be the first thing. The second thing, I'm absolutely going to recommend therapy, right?
Mhm.
So especially if you're dealing with someone who is truly narcissistic and has that personality disorder, you want to work with someone who's objective, who does not know this person, who doesn't even technically know you yet. And
Mm.
they can give you the advice, the sound advice, because when we go to our friends, they have a colored perspective. They're biased. When we go to our family members, they're biased. And so you need someone who's going to be objective for sure. And then last but not least, I would highly encourage people. Are you ready for this one?
Yes, we're ready. I'm leaning in too. You got me
Yeah,
leaning in.
we're all leaning in. We're all leaning in.
Go ahead.
Say it loud and proud.
Go
What?
ahead, go ahead.
I'm so tickled by this. This is so funny. So you guys are like, I'm leading in. I'm leading. I think the biggest bit of advice that I can give for someone in recovery is truly making sure that they understand their own value and worth.
Mm,
Because oftentimes that's stripped from you, that self-love, that self-worth, that you're deserving of more, that is kind of stripped away from you. So I think doing a deeper dive into your own self-worth, knowing that you're loved, that you're cared for, that you're respected, that you deserve to be loved at a high level, all of that needs to resonate with you. So doing that internal work on your own is key.
amen. That was phenomenal advice. I did the work, Keandra. I am sure my person was a narcissist, so that's check mark. So he was right on time there.
Mandy's face like, yes.
So yes, Laurie in the chat says preach. So yes, so that's great advice.
I
I'm
hope
gonna
the person isn't watching us right
if
now.
they are, it's okay because you know what happens is most of them have no clue. They would think, oh, this is no way for me. They have no clue. They're oblivious. Nothing is wrong with them, as you said. They can do no wrong.
Yeah.
So it just fits the pattern. I'm gonna digest what you said. I'm gonna turn to Mandy for her question. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna take some notes and go ahead.
Well, Amani, I want to tell you, you are worthy of the highest love, and we
Exactly.
all love and respect you.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I that was great advice, Kendra. I love hearing that.
Mhm.
I want to hang here for a second because you just said something that I identify with. Is I have been diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder back in 2015. Apparently, I had it my whole life, but is I'm going through perimenopause and my body chemistry changed and it really came out for to party. And I get a little triggered when people say, "Oh, I've got so much anxiety," because I'm like, yeah, but do you have have you been diagnosed? Okay, and it's a journey for me. Every day is a something that I'm managing it, and so when you say, somebody says they're narcissistic or the word trauma or the word anxiety, what is a good way? Like, what advice do you have for people that are actually have those disorders, like clinically diagnosed disorders? To, in a kind way, let the other person know they may not be using it the correct way while still protecting our mental illness and educate them. Like what's a great way to have that conversation with people that might be misusing those words?
Hmm. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That really resonates with me. I think the biggest thing in this area is vulnerability. Because
Mhm.
oftentimes we think that having a certain disorder or being anxious or depressed looks a certain way. You have to
Mhm.
be a certain race, or have be. It looks like it looks like a certain way. But
Yeah.
knowing that everyone from every race, ethnicity, height, weight, background, career choice can get these things or experience these things really kind of pulls down people's barriers and layers. So I think you even being honest with that person that you're speaking with and saying, hey, you know what, I actually have the disorder. And so when you say, you feel anxious, you might feel anxious in the moment, but that's very different than what I'm experiencing day in and day out. And so I think it's important to decipher things that are moments and traits from something that is more pervasive. Right? You can
Mhm.
have an anxious moment. You might be on a flight and you get anxious, or speaking on stage, you get anxious. Those are just
Mhm.
very small moments, but that isn't something that you experience day in and day out that takes over a good chunk of your life that you have to manage daily. And so I think we just have to be careful and more compassionate and show grace. And again, goes back to what I was saying, not overusing terms that we hear other people use and we just run with it. Maybe we need to kind of do a little research on our own and really figure out what trauma and narcissism and all of these things truly
Yeah.
mean, and not just run with it because it's a popular term.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's great advice. And then I'm going to turn this up a little bit of a notch here. So I went to my 30th high school reunion last month and it was hilarious because it's all these people that are all my age. And we talked about two topics: perimenopause and aging parents. It was
Mm.
literally the only thing anybody talked about. So, what advice do you have out there for those of us who have aging parents and we are witnessing their relationship changing before our very eyes? We don't want to overstep, but we do want to help. And I'm just dipping the toe in the water on this, by the way. So, this is a personal question for me, but what can we do to understand the aging parents thing, and how can we be helpful or not? Is helpful being silent?
Whew, this is a tough one because I think as we all age, especially if your parents are still with us, we're all going to experience this. No one really gets to escape this aging parents thing. And I think I did
Mhm.
a YouTube video about this maybe a few months ago or a few weeks ago, and I got so many private messages and emails where people were like, "Please talk about this more often because this is something I'm currently dealing with and I'm struggling." And I think the hardest part about aging parents is the role reversals, right? They take care of us if they're a great parent
Mhm.
and have been present. They take care of us their whole lives. And now they're getting older and we're seeing, okay, we have to check in on them. We have to call them. We have to make sure they go to their doctor's appointment. Are they taking their medication? And all trying to do that while we're still trying to live our own lives.
Mhm.
And I've even experienced this with my parents too, especially if they have some type of medical issues going on too. It just adds to the layers of like, wow, now I have another thing on my plate that I have to take care of and manage. Thank goodness I have a sibling where I can,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
these responsibilities and split the responsibilities. But it's very, very hard. And I think
Mhm.
their loss of independence is what really causes them to fight us so hard, right? Because
Okay.
they still want to drive, they still want to do all of these
Mhm.
things. It's like, I don't know if you should be 99 years old driving because this can be dangerous. So
Right.
we have to really kind of love on them, but it's a twofold thing. We're now kind of becoming the parents, and now they're losing their independence, and it's hard to manage. But I think having conversations about this in the most realist way possible is key.
Mhm.
I remember
And
me and my sister had to sit down with my mom
Mhm.
because we noticed something that was a little bit off with her too, and said, "Okay, I think you need to go get checked out on this. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know if it's the thing, but you really need to go get checked out." And she was kind of like, "That's not a thing. Like, it's whatever."
Mhm.
But I'm like, "No, it's a thing."
It's a thing. We see it. Yeah.
So yeah, and so it wasn't an easy conversation for us to have, but it was necessary, and we wind up getting good results on it and good responses on it. So I think communication is key in this area.
I love that.
Yes.
And so I'm going to have to watch your YouTube episode on aging parents for sure. I'm going to share it with my siblings too. And is there a way to honor, is there a way to honor the parents who want to exert their independence still by still, when you said we have to do this, we have to do that. I don't think my siblings and I feel like we get to
Hmm.
participate in this part of their life, but we also want to honor their independence that they're slowly losing a little bit, or their fear that they may experience. Is there a way to delicately honor that or recognize their fear without making them feel like we see their fear?
Yeah, I think acknowledging the realness of it all
Mhm.
is super important, but also to trying to come to I guess you can say like a middle ground of like, okay, I see you losing your independence, and maybe I'm not sure exactly what your situation is, but maybe something is a little off, and we do need to take a little bit more control in this area. But saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, but what are some things within that person, your parent, can still do? So it's like you're
Mm,
not taking all of it away from them. You're allowing them to still have some type of control and involvement in it, but just making sure that it's not dropped, it's not mishandled or
mhm.
forgotten. So again, it kind of goes back to that conversational piece, the
Yeah.
communication of like, what can we do to make sure that this is a safe situation for everyone, but
Mhm.
also still giving them a little bit of involvement and independence in it so they won't feel like you're taking everything away from them.
Beautiful. Expert advice. I appreciate that. Thank
You're
you.
Mhm.
welcome.
Just dropping gym after gym here. We have to get the little emote that says Jim. I mean, you can brush your shoulders off. It's okay. You can brush your shoulders off. It's okay. It's okay. My next question for you, two
Um,
parts here. You're the co-founder for Black Speakers Rock. What was the inspiration behind starting this organization?
Yeah, so I actually have a business partner who this was her grand idea. She was like, you know what, I want to create a platform for new and emerging speakers. There's some that are out there that is for everyone, but she was like, I don't really see one specifically for upcoming Black speakers. And so it really just started as an idea from her. And she was like, let's create a Facebook group. And I'm like, okay. So
Mhm.
we started to create a Facebook group from it, and it kind of just grew and expanded from there. And now it's a complete, separate brand within itself. And even though she is a speaker, I think because I do so many things more in the forefront, I have a little bit more of the day to day and kind of advice giving and all of those things. And so it's really just pouring back into a group of speakers who kind of want to do some of the things that I do, who don't know how to do it.
Mhm.
Doesn't have a blueprint. No one taught them. I think a lot of people who are really great speakers, like the great, great, great biggest speakers, even if they're not, Black, um, they kind of gatekeep some of the information. They don't really
Mm.
share how they got there and what the journey was. And I told myself, because Dr. Will Moreland, he
Yep.
has been an instrumental part of my speaker growth. I told them that when I get to a certain level, I would come back and share all of the gems that I know. And I've been doing that. So
Mm.
Amazing.
that's huge for me.
Well, let's hang there for a second. So, what advice do you have for speakers out there? Black speakers, non-black speakers, just you've been in the speaker game now for a bit. What advice do you have for people trying to build their speaker career?
Yeah, I've been speaking since 2016, which is
Yeah.
wild to say that out
Mhm.
loud.
Mhm.
And shameless plug, I have an upcoming masterclass that's happening on October 14th. For those who do want to get into the media and learn the ropes of that, whether you're a speaker, author, business owner, therapist, whoever, if you want to tap into that, there's an opportunity. Um, but I think the key is, and I know this might sound bad, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Say it. Say it.
Say it.
Just
Say it.
because you are an expert at something doesn't always translate to you being a great speaker. So I often
Mhm.
see people who have written books or who, work in certain fields and they think like, oh, because I do this, I'll be great at conveying it and speaking. And I'm just like, no, that's not the same
No.
skill set.
Yeah.
So people think that it's an automatic thing, but speaking is again a skill set that has to be nurtured and you really have to tap into it and learn the ins and outs of it. And so I would encourage people to learn that aspect of it and don't just think just because you are a thing that you're going to be great at speaking.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's one. And then two, I would encourage people to just get out there and do it. We're
Mhm.
living in an age now where social media and video, you can turn your phone on right now and create a video, and that's a form of speaking. And you
Mhm.
never know who that video is going to reach, who is going to inspire. Oprah might see it. You never know. And so things can
Big
happen
dream.
overnight.
Mhm.
And so sharing your story, your expertise, your knowledge with simply just your phone in your hand can be life changing. It doesn't have to be speaking on stages and being on television like me. It can start from the very, small things of just being on social media and creating videos on your phone.
Yeah, just
Amazing.
start. I think that is great advice. Just
Yeah.
start and know your strengths and weaknesses and know where your voice is helpful publicly or privately. That's great
Yeah.
advice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Now, there's a saying, and I heard this, at the National Speakers Association conference in Orlando. Where were you, by the way? We need to get you there. But second of all, uh,
Second invite,
um,
second invite.
yes, I had the list. I had the list here. They say don't do therapy from the stage. And I heard
Ooh.
this, and that's what the rule is, because like you don't want to be up there talking about, oh, well, I have this bone to pick with my ex-boss, and they did this, and this is what my speaking topic, or it could be relationship based. How do you follow that rule, but you're a therapist? Like, I'm curious as to how do you
Mm.
manage those lines by not doing therapy on stage when you are a therapist?
So I think the biggest thing that I've learned is graduate school did not teach me anything about speaking and writing books and being on television. Like you don't learn those things in graduate school. This is something that I had to pick up on the side extracurricularly outside of that knowledge. And so for us, if you're a really good therapist, you understand boundaries, you understand lines, you understand where you can pick up on subtle cues. You can just your intuition is just heightened a little bit
Mm.
if you're fully tapped in. So I know spaces where I can be vulnerable and share bits and pieces of my story without quote unquote bleeding on the people or
Mm.
giving too much to the point where they're like, why is she telling me this? But it's still relevant to whatever it is I'm discussing and talking about. I think even at WeCon, I shared a piece of my story about me growing up and eating the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because
Yeah.
my family, we recently got divorced. My parents got divorced, and it was difficult for my mom to provide, right? I shared that piece of my story because it's a healed part of me. I don't share pieces that I'm still working through or still trying to figure out or that still may be triggering for me. I shared healed parts of my story. And so that's the advice that I would give people who want to intertwine their personal story on stages is to share the healed aspects of you and not the things you're still working through.
Yeah, excellent
Ooh.
advice. Excellent
Yeah.
advice again. Who are some of your therapists? Well, let's ask two parts. Who are some therapists and speakers that are like your mentors that you look up to?
Ooh, I would definitely say Dr. Will Moreland.
Yeah, yeah. In addition to Dr.
Ah, and
Will,
he's
we love Dr.
here.
Will.
He's
We're gonna get
Yeah,
here.
Dr. Will
hands
too. We're gonna
down
get
my
him. Yes,
favorite for multiple
yes.
reasons, right? He's from Compton. He's a Black man. Like he gets it. He was probably one of the first people who poured into me and saw something unique in me and helped me kind of develop that. I would also say, you said therapist. Ooh.
And I don't want to influence your decision because I have a couple in mind that I think you might select, but go on first because there's some popular ones out there.
So, I mean, there may be some that you guys don't know because they're not in
That's
the limelight,
okay.
but I think the one that's coming to me is Dr. Spirit. I work with her work with her on one of the OWN shows that I was a part of, and she was the principal therapist and the host for the celebrities that we were working with in the reality TV space. And so, how she navigates media, her own private practice, speaking, she literally has like 7 kids, like, and a husband. Like, the way she navigates this space is really inspiring to me. And so, I definitely look up to her in this therapy and speaker space because it's also very unknown territory. Even though there are therapists who are speakers and in the media, it's not as frequent as
No.
No.
you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to have those role models to kind of see how they navigate and kind of, mimic and copy in the best way possible. Not stealing people's stuff, but mimicking them to kind of
Yes.
pave the way and create a space for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
So two
always
things.
ideating. Everyone's always ideating. Nobody's
Yes.
copying. We're just ideating.
Yeah.
Two things came up that I wanted
There
to
are
circle
people
back
who
to.
copy. People do
They
steal
are. We know who you are. We're gonna
Yeah,
call
we
you
know.
out. We know who you are. We'll call you
Same
out.
thing. You know your
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
We'll go back to Mandy's question about taking care of aging parents. The saying is like once a man or woman, twice a child. So I have to go through that.
Mm.
So that's the saying right there. I want to circle back to that. And then since you work with other speakers who are kind of up and coming or wanting to develop, and also just in therapy, there's this feeling out there that we're running out of time as you get older and as maybe you see friends or peers either having children going to college, getting promotions, and you're kind of doing your thing, particularly with entrepreneurs. You feel like you're running out of time. What's your advice? How do you handle that? Do you run into that? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a very common thing. I think in life in general, society gives us all of these rules of what we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to have by a particular age. And especially if you're a woman and, childbearing year, all of these pressures. And I think we're on this clock, especially if you have a biological clock, as well, you are on this clock that may or may not exist. And I get it. I get that it's pressure. I think that you do feel the urge to want to get all of the things you need to get now, but I'm really big on this season of my life of living in the here and now, like not dwelling too much on the past, even though it has its place and it's relevant. But also, I was horrible at like always moving on to the next thing, like
Mm.
not sitting in the moment, not sitting in the achievements, not soaking things in. Like I remember when Beyonce recognized my business and my work. And it was huge, right? Like it was a big, big deal. And the NAACP as well. But I remember
Yes.
thinking, well, what can I do next?
Yes. What's
Mm.
next? What's
What's
next?
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, it's so
And
common. Yeah.
that was a very eye-opening moment for me because I even had to process with my own therapist because I do believe every therapist should have a therapist. Like, why was I so concerned about the next thing and I couldn't soak in this huge accomplishment? And so that's when I had to pivot and really shift and say, okay, I'm going to start focusing on the moment, the now, the here, what's going on around me. Because if not, life is going to pass me by and I'm going to look up and being 80, 90 years old, God willing. And I'm going to look back over my life and feel like I have all of these accomplishments that I didn't just like sit in it. And so I'm learning to sit in the moments more often. I'm learning to be present. And that's what I would want other people to do as well. Life can be chaotic and crazy and wild and pandemic, post pandemic, the housing market. There's so
Yeah.
many worries
Yeah.
that we just have to just take a deep breath. Like everybody just needs to take a collective inhale and exhale and just be in the present moment.
I love that. I want to know how you mentioned tapping in earlier. I want to know with this great robust career that you have and personal life, how do you tap in? How do you tap out? Like what are your how do you keep yourself on? How do you allow yourself to be off?
I'm really big on boundaries. I have boundaries around everything. Like,
Mhm.
if you know me personally, like I do not play games around my time, my money, my sleep. Like all of those things. And so
Mhm.
even my family knows, like, don't call me after a certain hour unless it's an emergency. Like I have my life really systematically set up where
Mhm.
I have systems and things in place that kind of helps me to be sane.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm on, I'm on. I give 110%. But I also know that when I'm off, I really want to be off. So
Mhm.
my phone will be on do not disturb. I don't get notifications from social media. I'll take a nap. I'm a napper. I'll take a nap in the middle of the day. I might take a nap after this.
Oh,
All right,
good.
let's
Oh,
go. Let's
good. We love
go.
that.
Let's go. He is him.
I'm a napper. I love to cook, so that's something that I do to kind of just calm myself down, like a self care thing. I mean, I really try to enjoy the aspects of my life that most people wouldn't think that I do on a daily basis because people assume that I'm very extroverted and I'm pretty much smack in the middle. Like I'm not fully
Mm.
introverted or
Mhm.
extroverted. I'm an ambivert. And so
Mhm.
I get a lot of my energy still from being alone, being with my own personal thoughts, having quietness, and just being with myself and being with God. My faith is a
Mm.
huge sustaining factor for me. Everything I do is filtered through that. So that's really important to me as well.
Love
Now
that.
we've come to the part of the show where we flip the script and we let you ask us each a question. I see you're ready. You're ready. So we don't even need to tee it up for you. What question do you want to ask and who do you want to ask the question for first?
I'm gonna break the rules. I have a question for each of you, and then I also have like I guess a combined question.
Ooh, I like a rule
Love
breaker. That's fun.
We love it. Yes.
I'm a
Yeah.
Yes.
rule breaker. So I'll start with the combined question. And you guys may have answered this in previous live shows or episodes, but what made you guys start this
Mhm.
platform and this show? Like, what was the beginning and the genesis of that?
Mandy, you want to start off?
Yes, I love this question. And you know what's funny? Not many people do ask this question. I think we've shared this on the show, but I don't think
Mhm.
anybody's ever asked us that. So thank you for the question. So Amani and I, well, it was actually WeCon when you were the
Yeah.
speaker. I was on a committee and Amani was the president at that time. And somebody had said, I think I had said, why don't we do a LinkedIn Live to generate some registration? And people were like, that's great. Good idea. I'll roll with it. And I was like, oh, so now I've got to do this. But Amani was live streaming at the time. So he was comfortable with it. So he and I were doing these weekly live stream shows, 10 minutes. So one week we announced you as a keynote speaker. Another
Mhm.
week we would announce a breakout speaker. Another week we would announce a really cool sponsorship. And the whole purpose was to just continue to build our community and to generate more registration. And then after the show, Amani and I were like, "Well, that's fun, but it's over. How can we keep working together?" And so we
Yes.
talked several times, and then we both, talked about our love of business and our love of just learning and helping people. And I had just come off my book tour
Mhm.
where all of these people, and I'm sure this happens to both of you too, like they came up to me after each speech and they were telling me these grueling and exciting business stories. And I just felt selfish, like not sharing that with people. So, I really wanted to do some sort of show where we could share other business people's stories just to inspire people or help people. And then Amani obviously is the expert in the live streaming space. So we stayed on LinkedIn and live show is not easy, as you know. So but we stayed on LinkedIn and we did it once a week or once a month at the beginning.
Mhm.
Although Amani did say we need to do this weekly, and I said that gives me heartburn. But we but we did. We made space for it. We now do
Right.
it weekly. I'm so glad, and I'm so glad we tried it out and that we've stuck with it. So that was the genesis of it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know,
So that's
Amani, what
kind
did
of,
I miss? Did I miss
you
anything?
covered everything. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the first it was monthly, then we went to weekly. We're already through like a year, I think 36, 37 episodes. Like it's helping us with like our like visibility. It's helping us learn about like interviewing people. We get to meet people. It's like a really good way of networking and creating personal connections. And it's just, it's every Monday. I have it on my schedule. I look forward to it. Like today, I was telling Manny before we go, I was like, I got questions. I'm ready. I was like, dancing in the circle. I was ready to go. So it's just really good, and it's just we're learning and we're continuing to get better, and we're attending a masterclass. Like today, we attend a masterclass with Keandra, and
Mhm.
that kind of education cannot be replaced. So I love it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
me
love
too.
that. You guys attended a master class with me. Ooh.
Yes.
That's
We
right. Yes,
did.
put it down.
Thank
Now,
you.
yes. Now, who you
Okay,
guys
so
see
I
individual?
remember when I met you, Amani. I think maybe it was Mandy or someone else. Like they mentioned that you were a DJ, and I thought that was super duper cool because
Mhm.
when I met you, I thought that you were just this president of this organization, and to kind of like see something in you that I wasn't expecting. I thought that was so cool. So tell me
Aw.
about how you got to be a DJ because this isn't just
Mhm.
something that you just wake up in the morning. You're like, I want to be a DJ. Like,
Yeah.
how did this happen? Because I need the
How
backstory.
Yes. So went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., HBCU Love. Saw DJ Bismarcky at Quigley's nightclub in the mid 90s. He was amazing. Played all these songs, these theme show songs. I decided I want to be a DJ, but I didn't think it was a legitimate career. So I let fear hold me back, and I went to work for Marriott for many years. Every city I lived in, DC, Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Miami, LA, I'd still go see the DJs. And then finally I got out here and I first started to teach myself. I said, I want to learn. And then one of my best friends in life, Josh Evans, he said, I went to take a class at Scratch Academy. I think you should go there. It would help you. I know you're DJing now, but this could help build fundamentals. So I went to the class. This was back in 2012. So 11 years ago. And I already been DJing for 4 or 5 years, but this completely changed my life and the trajectory of my career. So I went through that program, had some interesting up and down experiences, passed, and just continued to grow from there, and I've DJed all over the world. I DJ big events, small events, online. So that's kind of how I got my start with the DJ. Long story short, yes.
So the next time I have an event and need a DJ, I
Yes.
know who to
Call
call.
me
You
immediately.
know
You
who
should
to
already write.
call.
Call me now. Send me dates now. Let's talk now because got to have the music. I can also see. I have some unique things. I can also be your opener, which means that I can DJ for your opener, or I can do a quick talk. I will open up properly, which means I'm not going to overshadow you. I can do a quick talk to warm up the crowd so they're ready for you. Also, I can DJ, open, and close.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I
I
think
see
that's one
partnership.
quality that most people wouldn't have. I don't think
Yeah.
Yeah.
all DJs can do that. So
No.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Mandy. So also when I met you, I remember after like you were the coolest. You were super
Ah.
duper nice. And so I think we were talking after my keynote, and you had briefly mentioned like, oh yeah, I'm also a speaker and an author. And I don't think we really got a chance to really dive into your book. So what would you say was the hardest part about writing your book? Like the realest part, not like some little
Mm.
sugar coated answer, but like
Yeah.
the authentic, realest part about writing your book behind the scenes that no one would really think about.
Ooh, that is a great question. Nobody has asked me, and something came to mind as soon as you said that. So I don't know if this is 100% the hardest, but it's the first thing that came to mind. Is my book spans 20 years of business, jobs, sales. So I was recounting story. Oh, thank you, there it is. Sales, hustle, humor, lessons of a life in sales. I was recounting stories from my professional career, but it was still like I was recounting things from 1993, 1997, 2004. So my brain, after a day of writing, my brain would sort of be stuck there. Not just about the story itself, but I would be like remembering, God, I was dating this guy at that time who was such a jerk, or like, and I was stuck in a space where it took me the first couple times. I remember I come home and my husband's like, how was your writing retreat? And I'd be like, it's fine. It's fine. And I wasn't at my best because I was kind of stuck in that space. And then I remembered after 3 or 4 times, I was like, oh, this has nothing to do with the writing. This has to do with me kind of reliving a pieces of my past that I hadn't
Mhm.
healed. And so then what I would do, even though I was writing the business stories, I would take a little extra time. I added some buffer time to just write about my life at that time. And I that was very cathartic for me. So I would think that was the hardest. I didn't recognize it at first. And then eventually I healed some business stories. I healed some personal past stories too. But like I think sticking in that space and not really knowing how to dig out of it was difficult.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
What a good
interesting.
question.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, as an author, a lot of times people don't understand the writing process. It's not always easy for people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that can happen that can either
Yeah.
catapult the book, press pause. There's just so many different things.
Mhm.
So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that because that was real. That was very real.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
All,
it colors how you look at things for the future too. So thank you for bringing that up. That was
yeah.
helpful.
All three of us are authors and speakers, so that's something else we have in common. So now we're to the part of the show where I have like one final exercise and one final question, and Manny will have a follow up, and then we'll be out on our way for the next part of our day. Um, I'm gonna give you a word association. So I'm gonna say one word, and you have to tell us the first thing that comes to your mind. It can be a word or a sentence, and then I ask you one of my favorite final questions. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay. No fear, only love, no mistakes, only gifts here. Improv right there. The first word is fear,
Faith.
Mm.
divorce,
Sorry. I think of the opposite, healthy relationships.
okay,
Mm.
you laughed. No one's really laughed when we asked them for
I
that.
laugh because I think people probably wouldn't automatically associate healthy relationships with divorce.
Okay, okay. Next one is a phrase, finding love.
Ooh, maintaining the love once you find it.
Mm.
Ooh.
Self-worth.
The first thing that came to my mind was money, even though I don't believe like self-worth and money are attached. But that was the first thing that came to my mind, so I'm going to go with that one.
Fair enough, fair enough. Compton.
Ooh, Dr. Dre, NWA.
Got it, got it. We love it. And finally, staying sane in an insane world.
Ooh.
A prescription for even better mental health.
Love it.
Woo!
Title of one of the books there. So, uh, if you could go back to right as you are graduating from Cal State Dominguez Hills
Oh,
and
you're telling
give,
all my business.
I mean, I didn't tell the year though. I didn't tell the year. So, all respect, I didn't say, I'm not gonna say the year, but I did put the year out there. And you could talk to Keandra from back then, but give her advice based on what you know now. What advice would you give your younger self?
I would say, girl, don't stress. Don't worry about anything. You will find your path. You will figure out what you want to do in the world. You will figure out how you want to leave your mark in the world. So don't worry about the logistics of your degree, but you will be great.
Amen. Manny, you want to
I
close
didn't
this
have a
out?
clue what I wanted to do at Dominguez Hill.
No one really does. No one
No
really
one
does.
does. No one
So yes,
does.
you're not alone. Mandy, you want to take us home?
Yeah, I just want to know, how can we support you? Like,
Hmm.
what can we do to support you and lift you up? You've given us time on the phone and you've helped so many people listening. So what can we do to support you?
That's a beautiful question. And I think that a lot of people have been really pouring into me lately. I think I give a lot to a lot of people, whether that's directly or inadvertently. And I think God has been intentional about having people come back to me and give me my flowers now. Like I had a call
Mm.
before this where a lady was started crying and told me how I
Hmm.
impacted her, and I don't even know her. And so
Aw.
I really appreciate those moments. And so for me, it's really just good vibes. It's sending me good energy, maybe checking in on me on the most randomest days if I cross your mind or if you see my content. Um, And also, if anyone wants to continue to support any of my work, I am still trying to grow one of my platforms, YouTube. And so if anyone wants to stay connected, maybe sharing that platform would be great.
Got it.
Awesome.
We'll drop the
Done,
link in the
done, and
chat
done
there.
for
Thank you.
sure.
We'll give you a round of applause. Hold on here. Excellent, excellent interview and advice and everything. I'll put you back in the green room really quickly, and we'll be right
Thank you
back with
so
more.
much, Keandra. It
Thank
was
you so
awesome to
much.
have
Just
you. We appreciate you.
amazing advice, amazing wisdom, very honest too. Like
Mhm.
just respect. So thank you. Just thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Of course. All right. So there we go. Mandy, tremendous show today. What do we have to look forward to next week?
We have someone really interesting, very relevant. So we have Angela Johnson, who
Mhm.
is a marketing design, a marketing person, but she's in the real estate, the commercial real estate and hospitality space. So she's
Mhm.
a designer and an artist and a photographer. And she does a lot with new builds, new buildings, new builds, new hotels, renovations. And she's just going to talk with us about being an entrepreneur and what's new in the design world. So I'm very excited about next week.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Make sure to follow our LinkedIn page, Adventure in Business Live. Follow us on YouTube. Follow our guest today, Keandra, on YouTube. And we will see you back here next week, same time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 in the West. Thanks again to our guest today, Keandra. And we will be back next week.
We will. Good
Bye,
luck
everyone.
tonight. Good luck with your
Thank
show
you.
tonight,
Thank you.
Amani. You're going to crush it. We know
I
it.
know. I have confidence. Thank you. All right.